about me, Dean Blandino, because I saved those last two spots for you so you could have some hate, because I know you love hate, and so I wanted to have those two spots. He's Dean Blandino. I'm Mike Pereira. We are last call. Week 16 is in the books. Week 17 is going to shape up to be some kind of week. But Dean, we got a lot to talk about this week.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. Controversy between the Jets and the Browns. The only controversy I saw were the Browns flushing their playoff hopes down the drain, and the Jets flushing their hopes of getting Trevor Lawrence down the drain. But we'll move on from that. Did Jalen Hurts fumble? Did Josh Reynolds give himself up? And then we're going to talk about the wild finish between the Dolphins and the Raiders. Let's start there, Mike, and let's go in chronological order, because there were a couple of plays that occurred late in that game where it looked like the Raiders were going to win, then the Dolphins was going to win, then the Raiders, the Dolphins. But there was a big defensive pass interference call in that game late, put the Raiders in scoring position for the go-ahead score. What did you see on this one, Mike?
Actually, what I saw was what I thought was a pretty good defensive play, Dean. I mean, this is the nightmare of the current pass interference rule to me. You've got a 49-yard pass interference penalty when the restriction, if there is much, to me, is not clearly enough to fall into that category of significantly hindering the receiver's ability to make the catch. Yes, there is some contact. Maybe there is a quick grab of the jersey on the right shoulder, but is it really enough to consider pass interference? I just don't think so. You can see, as you usually can, why they are called, but you have to apply that standard. And for this to be a 49-yard penalty, to me, I couldn't agree more with Peter King, what he said in his column today. This rule's got to go. That this needs to be a max 15-yard penalty, that a 49-yard penalty for really a call that I don't feel is correct to possibly decide whether the Dolphins would have made the playoffs or not would have been disastrous. And I don't know about you, but when I was in the office and when I ran the program, when I saw a play like this that had the impact like it had, and when I felt it was incorrect, I would have been rooting for the Dolphins to win, quite frankly, because it would have lessened some of the controversy. But, to me, I think max 15 yards makes this a heck of a lot better, because I didn't really agree with the call.
Well, I agree with you. I didn't like the call either. I think there is some contact, and the back judge, from his perspective, saw it, maybe a slight grab. But again, you go back to the rules, significantly hinders. I didn't see Aguilar get significantly hindered on that play. Didn't appear to break stride, was able to get both arms out to try to make the catch. And I just thought it was a good defensive play. And certainly you don't want that called in that situation or any situation. I don't agree that it's a bad rule. While, yes, in college, the 15 yards or the spot foul, it does work in the college game. I think the NFL, it's a different athlete. You're talking about elite across the board when you're talking about defensive players, defensive backs. And if we had a 15 max rule, I think in that situation, if you're beat, you're just going to tackle the receiver. And I worry about the impact on the deep passing game. And when you look at the numbers, and yes, I can't sit here and say, the ticky-tack, iffy 49-yard penalty, no one wants that. I don't want that to potentially decide a game. But when you look at the numbers, very few pass interference calls are the 40, 50-yard variety. The majority are really between 10 and 20 yards, right in that 15-yard range. But I get your point. When you see a play like that, it's hard to say, hey, if that were just a 15-yard penalty, it would have less impact. I agree with that. But I think overall the rule works for the NFL. And I don't think, for me, I don't think the NFL should go to the college rule. But again, that play, it's tough to sit there and watch that play and say that deserved 49 yards. I don't even think it deserves 15 yards. I just think it's a good no call.
But if you say that the majority of penalties fall within 10 or 20 yards, so you're only talking about basically a 5-yard difference in protecting against this. I don't like the Hail Mary thing either, quite frankly, where you can throw the 50-yard pass and we saw it. You get the ball at the 1 yard line. I just,
Yeah, how many Hail
I
Marys
always said,
do we see pass interference called on? Not
yeah,
many.
not often, but we do see the situations that came up like it did yesterday. And to me, watch college football. I know they're not as skilled, the defenders and stuff, but I get it. But still, if you're close enough to commit pass interference, you're trying to make a play. Almost all the time, you're trying to make a play. And it does work in college. And I can't see how, man, you get a max 15-yard penalty for kicking a guy or for clipping them from behind and almost hurting them. And here you get a pull of the jersey and you could get a 40-yard penalty. I mean, how far are we going to go for the offense here? So this is one that I will disagree forever. I think it's a bad rule. And I think it's one that could make officiating easier to stomach so you don't have to deal with these multiple yards, 40-yard penalties. But you're right. It's not going to change because the competition committee always said, right, they don't want to take the deep vertical passing game away. Well, watch football on Saturday. I don't agree.
You got to, and
alone.
look, you just got to remember though, you make a change for a handful of plays, and what are those consequences? And so again, I just don't think you make a change for a handful of plays. If it becomes an issue and this becomes across the board, then maybe you consider it. I like the NFL rule. I think it's a different standard than college. Because remember, college rules, it's not just Ohio State and Clemson. It's Division II, it's Division III. So you're really, the difference in athlete is significant. But let's move on. I know I'm never going to convince you off of that.
Right,
you're on that pulpit and you're gonna die on that hill. That's fine. But let's move on a little bit later in the game, right? The Dolphins are on the wrong end of a call. Now they're on the right end of a call. Ryan Fitzpatrick or Fitzmagic drops back to pass. He gets hit. What happened here?
What? I mean, like, what is going on here? I mean, leading up to it, they don't try to score. One of those amazing plays where Jacobs actually stops so he doesn't score, and the defense is stopped because they want him to score. But the Raiders are going to run it down to 20 seconds or so and kick the field goal to go ahead by one. And now they come off the field and they're celebrating like mad. And it's crazy. And then look what happens. Look what happens on a blown coverage, much less, where the receiver gets wide open down the sideline and you get roughing the passer. I thought it was very well described by Tony Careni, who said it was the roughing the passer caused by a face mask penalty. And so when you have a personal foul and a completed pass, you tack it on, and so they get the ball and they win the game. I mean, it's like unbelievable when the Raiders had just won at the end when they, they got a blitz against them and they scored a winning touchdown in the end, cost somebody their job, by the way. But it was just wild and crazy, and it was correctly called, no doubt, except I still look at this and it brings into this discussion to me, what is holding and what is not holding? I mean, is he reaching out to grab at something because he is being held? And you've seen the shots here, and you're going to see one that basically shows he's wrapped up as he's trying to reach, and the arm is all the way across the chest. You see it there, the right arm all the way across, pulling the jersey, pulling him away. Do you think it was enough for holding, Dean?
Not in 2020. The standard
right.
has changed, and there's no question. You look at the numbers, the offensive holding numbers, especially on offensive linemen, across the board, they are drastically down. So I don't think the league is going to look at that and give what we would describe as a no call to that crew for missing that as a hold, because we've seen that technique not get called. And that comes at the direction of the officiating department. Do I think there's enough for holding? Sure. There's restriction, the arm across, right? The feet are beat, the arm across the body. And I think that does reach the normal standard of holding, but that's not the case this year. And had it been called, then you basically have offsetting fouls, and you're going to replay the down, and there's basically, there's no pass downfield, there's no tack on, and the Dolphins are starting at square one again. I do think it's interesting as you talk about that play and not wanting to score the touchdown near the end of the game because you want to take time off the clock. It happened. It happened in the Liberty Coastal Carolina game where Liberty was trying to run out the clock. And to me, it was almost as if the defenders are pushing him into the end zone, and he's reaching the ball back outside the goal line, and he actually ends up fumbling. It's crazy. I remember Tom Coughlin, who spent a year with us in the NFL officiating department after he left coaching, and it would infuriate him. Because if you remember when the Giants played the Patriots, Ahmad Bradshaw, they tried to do it against the Patriots at the end, and Ahmad Bradshaw kind of stopped at the goal line and then fell in. He said, ever since that point, I hate it. You know how hard it is to score in this league? You know how hard it is to get the ball in the end zone? Just put it in the end zone and play defense. Too many bad things can happen. So I always go back to that when I see it backfire on a team. But it was a crazy, crazy end to that game. And some might say it was karma that the Dolphins came out after that questionable pass interference call.
And by the way, I was watching that Coastal Carolina Liberty game. That was just an amazing football game. Well, let's just switch to another game. Yeah, Fitz, let's love that. Look at that. He's the new magician in Las Vegas. When it ever
Salt
opens
Bay.
up.
Do you know Salt Bay is, Mike? Do you know that he's supposed to be Salt Bay? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. What was the guy last week? I forget even the guy last week who he was.
Ferris Bueller.
The magician. He's a magician, right?
Salt Bay is, yes, he's a magician. Keep going. Go wherever you were going, just go. Salt Bay, the magician.
Stop. Let's go on. Let's move to the Jets game. I mean, to the Cleveland game with the Jets. I mean, obviously you were in there watching this one. It's unbelievable. There's the Baker Mayfield fumble rule, and Mike tried to explain that the ball did not fumble forward. It was backwards like a pitch. How can you not advance a pitch? Let's start with this one, Dean. Take us through the sequence of this game.
This was interesting, and I was actually surprised at the questions on social media about this play. It was pretty straightforward to me. Look, it's fourth down. We're also inside 2 minutes, so only the fumbling player can advance the fumble. We talked about this last week with the Chargers and the Raiders. So Baker, QB sneak, trying to get the first down. He fumbles. Kareem Hunt picks up the loose ball and basically falls forward beyond the line of game. By rule, it's a fumble. We're inside 2. It's fourth down. Only the fumbling player can advance. It comes back to the spot of the fumble, which was short of the line of gain. So the ball goes over on downs to the Jets. And then social media just exploded with this idea that why is that different from a backward pass, a pitch, an option that can be advanced? Well, it's different because one is an intentional act and one is not intentional. A fumble is any act other than a pass or a kick or a successful handoff that causes the player to lose possession, whereas a pass is an intentional act, moving the hand forward, whether it's an overhand pass or an underhand pass or a shovel pass. That's the difference, and that's why this ball could not be advanced. And it was interesting because a lot of people thought, hey, why can't you advance that? Well, you can't because it's a fumble, not a backward pass.
Yeah, it was interesting to me when I saw it too, that there would be any reaction based on the fact, like you said, we just had it. But then the other thing too is that the ball always doesn't go back to the spot of the fumble. If the ball ends up getting recovered behind the spot of the fumble, it's dead at that spot, and it's not moved back to the spot of the fumble. So let's say that Baker Mayfield had made the line to gain, and then he fumbles backwards, and it looked like it might have been recovered backwards. It would have been dead at that recovery spot, and they wouldn't have got the first down, and the ball would have gone over on downs. And that was one part of the uniqueness of the rule that we always talk about. Okay, fourth down fumbles inside of 2 minutes. If there's a fumble, only the fumble, yada, yada, yada. And if it doesn't, it comes back to the spot of fumble. Well, not always the case, because if that recovery is behind the spot of the fumble, it stays there. And so that could have had a factor into this as to where Baker Mayfield fumbled. But then you went on in this game and you had one that confused me, because when I saw it, it looked rather simple to me. This was a ruling, a big play. It was Sam Darnold to pass. and he actually gets ruled on the field as incomplete. The ball was actually picked up by Cleveland and run into the end zone, but it was ruled incomplete, challenged, I believe. I think it was outside of 2 minutes, and I believe stayed as incomplete, Dean.
Yeah, I was surprised. A couple of things. When it's that close, we've seen almost to a fault. We've seen the officials let it go and let it play out. This one, the on-field ruling was an incomplete pass. Cleveland did recover. It was outside 2 minutes, so they had to challenge, and they did. And I just thought this was clearly a fumble. I saw the hand, right? The arm gets hit, the ball starts to come loose, and then the hand comes forward. Remember, it's the hand with control, intentional movement of that hand forward starts the passing motion. I didn't see any control. I saw the ball come off the hand, then the hand came forward. I thought this was a fumble. I thought it should have been overturned. I get when there's doubt, staying with the call on the field. I think that is a good philosophy. I think that's something we've done since 1999, and we've always taught that. But to me, this one looked clear and obvious. It looked like it was a fumble. It looked like the ball was coming off the hand before the hand came forward. I thought it was clear. Obviously, based on these tweets, a lot of other people thought it was clear. But ultimately, it came down to the decision makers in New York, and they felt that there wasn't enough evidence to overturn and let it stand.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's what they thought, but I don't get it, because to me, it's not forward. I mean, you get that motion of the arm, where the elbow starts moving forward, and even the arm might start moving, but the hand usually moves up first. And to me, there was no control when the hand started forward, and the ball, literally by the motion of the arm, is going to move a little bit forward when it comes rolling out of the hand. So I agree with you. And the point I think that you made, which goes back a year ago, is they wanted the officials to go fumble if it's that close. So you don't, because obviously, even if they would have reversed this to a fumble, Cleveland would have gotten the ball, but they wouldn't have gotten the score. And that's the issue with ruling these ones that are so close as incomplete passes. And so that's a tough one, because what did we see after that? And we have seen it from time to time. Obvious hand going forward, and they let it go as a fumble, and then it has to be corrected in replay. But I would agree with you. This one, to me, of the pass fumble plays, seems pretty obvious that it's a fumble and not a forward pass.
Yeah, and then there was another play in another game, Eagles, Cowboys, Jalen Hurts, late in the game, down 2 scores, Hurts near in the red zone. Ball comes loose, officials on the field, rule of fumble, goes to review. Another one they let stand. What did you see on this one?
I mean, I thought this was really simple to me. I hate to be disrespectful, but to me, the left knee was down, and the ball is still in his possession. It hadn't begun rolling out of his hands. He had firm possession on the ball. What you got to do is focus on the left knee. And this is the type of play where, if you listen to the announcers, Kenny Albert, and you listen to him, it's like they automatically, the first shot they saw on replay said, he's down. And I think everybody felt that. And to me, again, this just to me focuses on the fact that we're looking at another person's judgment, looking at something one way, maybe looking at more continuous action to see if it's coming loose. But there's the old 100 guys in a bar or 50 guys in a bar, Dean. I mean, they'd look at this play and say that he is down and it's not a fumble. And yet it stood as a fumble. So we always seem to fluctuate here. And as I said on a show this morning, we probably have 25 reviews every weekend. And I'm sure that if we dissected every one of those 25, there's always going to be 3 or 4 that we don't agree with. I mean, it just seems like that we're taking video and we're looking at it either in stop motion or super slow, and we're not going to agree, but it has big impact. And to me, I don't think he necessarily had both knees down, as Alex said, but I don't know. To me, Dean, he's down.
Yeah, I thought he was down, and we went through, we were looking at it in the studio, and there was a couple of elements to this. It's actually the first knee that hits is actually the defender's knee. And then you can see Hurts' left knee hit, and we were talking about that. And then as you look at the play, and I really feel like the issue here is how are we looking at this and how are we determining loss of possession? And to me, it goes back to the catch rule. And there's language in the book that says slight movement is not loss of possession. It's not loss of control. It's not loss of possession. And if we're looking at this and we're saying the ball started to move just before the knee is down, right? That does not necessarily mean he has lost possession. The ball slightly moving doesn't mean loss of possession. Is it out? That's what I want to see. Did the ball come out? Is it clearly loose? Is the hand off the ball? Has it separated from the ball? We teach this to college replay officials is, again, don't look at slight movement and say the ball slightly rotates, so that is a loss of possession. It's not. Slight movement is not by rule. And as you look at this, to me, left knee's down. Hurts still has the ball, still has his hand firmly on the football. It's still in his arm. And then it comes loose after he's down. The Eagles offense was out on the field. The Cowboys defense was out on the field still as the review was going on, anticipating this was going to get overturned. And then it didn't. And like you said, look, it is judgment. And I'm always for staying with the ruling on the field when it's not clear. I think that's the best way to do it. That keeps you consistent. And we're always going to differ on judgment sometimes. And but again, to me, this felt obvious. It looked clear that he was down. And like you said, it's a big play because the Eagles had the ball in the red zone. They score. It's a one-score game. As it turned out, the ruling on the field stood. Dallas went down, scored, and put the game away. But again, it's judgment, and that's where we are in replay right now. We're always going to disagree on some of these calls.
Let's kind of go to another play, which I think is fascinating, from the Rams in Seattle. Reynolds catches a pass, right? Kind of across the middle. We're outside of 2 minutes, just outside of 2 minutes. Basically rolls over and then just pops right up, puts the ball down and pops right up and goes to goes to line up in a formation because they're going to try to get another play off before the 2-minute warning. And all hell broke loose because immediately Seattle picked up the ball. And the line judge, I believe it was, came in and signaled defensive ball. So this whole crazy notion, Dean, did he actually give himself up?
Yeah, he did. And this is, it's funny because you talk about a runner giving himself up, and it's more obvious when he's running with the football and then he slides down or goes to the ground. It's obvious in that instance. Here you have a receiver that's making no attempt to advance the football. That's the key. And remember, we had the play last year in the end zone in the Bills-Texans playoff game with the touchback. He caught the ball and he flipped it to the referee. He's not trying to advance it. He's giving himself up. And I think that's what Reynolds is trying to do here. But again, he surprised everybody because the ball's sitting on the ground. What do you think the defense is going to do? And I think the officials got together and got it right. I know a lot of people have a hard time with this. I think the league is going to look at maybe adding some language, because in the book, it talks about going to the ground and making no attempt to advance, maybe add an AR, an approved ruling, a casebook play, just to clarify. But it's obvious that Reynolds is not trying to advance the football. He has given himself up by putting the ball down. I thought that was the correct call. Unfortunately for the Rams, then you get there's some question as to what's happening, and the Rams end up getting penalized unsportsmanlike conduct for being out on the field after the play. It was just a crazy sequence, but ultimately I did believe Reynolds was giving himself up.
Yeah, net 2-yard loss. But your plays you referred to last week, when they kick off into the end zone, flipped the ball to Tony Carini, was the referee, and he actually ruled safety, I think, is what he ruled
Initially.
But then they came down and got to him, remember, and said, no, wait a minute. He gave up. He gave up on the play. He did not try to advance the football. And that's the key. You've got to show that you're trying to advance the football and not do what Reynolds did and put it down on the ground. and then the one thing that somebody I saw mentioned, that's not reviewable in replay. So whatever that they rule in the field, if an official rules that a runner does give himself up, forget it. No replay, whether he's been touched or not. But a crazy sequence there that had everybody kind of up in arms. And then who knows if it was inside of 2 minutes, who knows what if it happened then, because then there was an injury on the play. The Rams player got absolutely KO'd coming down toward the football. It was just an absolutely wild sequence, and in a big game that turned out to go Seattle's way and won them another division championship.
Yeah, crazy play, crazy sequence, crazy week. We got one more week to go. We still have #1 seeds on the line. We got division titles on the line. We're going to have a lot of great games. Everything's on Sunday. We no Thursday, no Monday. So buckle up for Sunday. It's going to be amazing. This has been Last Call. That's Mike. I'm Dean. Watch us next week and check us out on the Fox Sports app, where our executive producer, Bondo, is responsible for all the amazing content, especially anything Buffalo Bills related.
Go Bills, Bondo. Go Bills. Beat the Pats.
For the best stories, easy to find scores, and comprehensive team pages, plus access to every live Fox Sports game and exclusive bonus cameras, download the all-new Fox Sports app now.